Okay. Welcome everybody. So my plan is to go in order. The shir is titled The Laws of Preparation of Pesach. So I'm gonna go in chronological order. I think it makes sense to first talk about kashering the kitchen. I think that's what people do first. And then we'll talk about bedikas chametz and beer chametz, what items you have to get rid of, what you don't have to get rid of, and checking the house for chametz. And then we'll proceed, I guess you could say, to the morning of Erev Pesach, which we'll say is the selling of the chametz, and also Erev Tafshilin this year. So those are the four broad categories I'd like to talk about. So let's start right away with the kashering of the kitchen. So in general, obviously, there's a rule in the Torah. Actually, it's learned from the Chumash. Give me a second. 1 second. Hi, how are you? Yeah. Join meeting. Let me stop recording a second. Stop recording. Pause recording. All right. So again, we're going to start with kashering, as I mentioned, kashering the kitchen. So in general, just to give a little bit of a background, then we'll get into the practical particulars. The Torah itself, in the Pesachim and Chumash, talk about kashering. It talks about kashering in Parshas Matos, when the Jewish people defeated Midian and captured all of their kalim. So the Torah talks about, number one, you have to tovil the kalim that you obtained from a non-Jew, okay, tfilas kalim, but that's a separate mitzvah. That's immersing it in a mikvah. That's a separate issue, which we're not going to deal with, of course. Actually, I'll touch on it briefly now that I mentioned it. If you obtain any type of metal utensil which is used as a food receptacle, if it's a pot, it's a bowl, it's a plate, cutlery, etc. If it's metallic and it was owned by, you obtained it from a non-Jew, either the manufacturer was not Jewish or the store you bought it from was owned by non-Jews. So then, if it's metallic, it's a Torah mitzvah to immerse them in the mikvah. Okay, good.
We're gonna get to see him in a minute.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. It's a Torah mitzvah to immerse them in the mikvah. And if it's glassware, so then it's a rabbinic mitzvah. Things which are, besides metal and glassware, there's no, anything plastic does not have to be totaled in the mikvah.
Don't touch it, Tasha, because I might not know what to do.
Okay, so it's basically, again, metalware has to be toveled. That's a Torah mitzvah to be toveled in the mikvah, and glassware is a rabbinic mitzvah. So those are the two categories of utensils that have to be toveled in the mikvah. Okay, so that's one idea, is immersion of utensils. Another aspect, which we're going to now focus on, is called kashering utensils. Okay, that if it absorbed non-kosher food, so then these utensils have to be kashered. So now it depends, how did it absorb the non-kosher food? Okay, if it absorbed it what's called derech eish, through direct fire. Okay, let's say like a grate on a grill, so then it has to be kashered through that same method, through what's called libun chamor, making, number one, obviously, actually, before you kasher anything, you have to clean it thoroughly. There can't be any what's called mamashos, actual, residue, physical, residue that you can see with your eye on the material. It has to be perfectly clean. Okay, and then you could, go to kashering. Now, if it got treif, let's say a grill, you grill on the barbecue, you put some treif meat on there. Okay, so then the method that you use is the same way it became treif, which is, it's called eish. Fire, you have to heat that metal up till it glows red hot. and then you've koshered that metal. Okay, you've koshered the grate on the grill or whatever it is. If it got absorbed, the treif got absorbed through through a liquid medium. Let's say a non-kosher soup was cooked in a pot. So then the method is what's called hagala, boiling. You have to purge the non-kosher, which was absorbed in the wall of the pot through the same methodology. So that's the principle kibolo kach polta. The way the treif got absorbed into it is the way that the treif is going to be purged from that item. Okay, so now there's one additional idea of preface before we get into the particulars that's worthwhile to know, is that it makes a difference whether or not it was treif that got absorbed into the utensil or it was kosher. Now, what do I mean? Let's say you have something fleshik and you want to use it for milchik. You have a fleshik. You roasted a grilled cheese or something with cheese on the grill, and now you want to use it for a fleshik. So in general, it's a question whether, as a practical matter, we switch back and forth from fleshik to milchik versus kashering. But just to demonstrate the principle is that the Torah says in such a situation, even if it got absorbed through fire, right? If it's what's called hetera bala, it didn't absorb through. It didn't absorb treif. It was the cheese was perfectly kosher. You just want to kosher it from. You just want to kosher it from meat to milk or milk to meat. So then, even if it got absorbed through fire, you don't have to use eish. You don't have to use libun to kosher it. You could use the lower level of hagala of boiling water over it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to heat the metal till it gets red hot. Okay, so that's just if people understood the preface, good. If not, you can ask me afterwards or even now. But let's just move on to the particulars of koshering the various utensils in the kitchen. Okay, so let's start with, I guess, the easiest or the most straightforward thing, which is the oven. Okay, if actually, if I could just ask people to mute from their end. The mute is on the bottom left, so because I'm getting a lot of kind of feedback from other people. So if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. But in the meantime, I'm just getting a lot of feedback from different people.
He's not on video.
No, he's live.
Okay. Hi, Dina, whoever. Would you mind muting? Just thank you. While you look at it, thank you. So let's start with the oven. Okay. All right. Let's start with the oven. If a person, the easiest thing, obviously, I think most modern ovens now are self-cleaning. People have the self-cleaning option. That's the easiest thing. Run a self-cleaning cycle. You don't really have to clean it so well beforehand. That's the best kind of strict, the strongest kind of koshering, which is called libun chamor, which is burning everything out. You're not just purging it, you're burning it out. And the consensus is that a self-cleaning cycle koshers your oven, you're good to go. And obviously you should leave the racks in because the racks need koshering as well. That's really the most straightforward thing. In addition, if just while we're talking about the self-cleaning cycle in the oven, some people, and I do this, is that if you have a gas range, the grates on which the pots rest in the gas range, if you stick the grates in the self-cleaning cycle, that would kosher the grates for sure as well. Some people, it does get a little bit slightly discolored if you stick the grates in. If that bothers you, so then maybe we try and figure out a different method to kosher the grates for the gas stovetop. But certainly, I think that's probably the easiest way to go. Okay, so that's if you have a self-cleaning oven. The self-cleaning cycle koshers your oven, and you don't really have to do much physical cleaning before, and you're good to go. If you have a non-self-cleaning oven, which the conventional old-style ovens, so then it requires more work. You have to really, clean out your oven well with a good oven cleaner, an easy off, or they have various oven cleaners. you have to do a good job, remove all the grime and stuff like that and then you should really ideally not use the oven for 24 hours, okay? And then turn it on to its highest and let it go for about an hour and a half, whatever is the longest you would ever use that oven for to cook something. That's how long, or slightly longer, is how long you should run the oven at the highest temperature. So that's how you would clean a non-self-cleaning oven, how you would kosher a non-self-cleaning oven for Pesach. Okay, is that clear? Okay, moving on to the stovetops. Okay, so if you have a gas range, okay, so you want to clean the surface well, and again, not use it for 24 hours. But like I said, I personally stick the grates in the self-cleaning cycle. But they also say, if you could also stick it in the oven at a 550 at the highest of conventional temperature, and leave it there for 1 hour as well, and that will kosher the grates as well. And they suggest that the surface, besides the grates, the actual metal surface of the gas range should be covered with tin foil. If you have an electric stovetop, electric coils, so then again cleaned well, surface covered besides the coils, and you turn up the coils to the highest until it glows red hot, and leave it there glowing red hot for a little bit, for about 10 minutes or so, and then you've koshered your electric stovetop. Some people have a glass stovetop. The glass stovetops cannot be koshered. So what should be done is clean the surface as best you can, and then they use some kind of aluminum disc or some kind of metallic disc placed over the burners, and you're going to place your pot on top of that for Pesach. Okay, moving along to the sink. If a person has a porcelain sink, I think it's a little less common nowadays. Porcelain is like earthenware, cannot be koshered. At least that's the main consensus opinion. So therefore, cover it well. Clean it as well as you can. Basically, you're going to have to, cover it or line it with some kind of covering, I guess a tin foil or something like that. And used that way, but you cannot actually kosher the surface, so the surface has to be covered with tinfoil or the like. If you have a stainless steel sink, as most people do, so the stainless steel sink can be koshered. It has to be cleaned, and then again, preferably not used, at least with hot. Preferably not used for 24 hours. But if that's an impossibility, even so, you can still kosher it using what's called iroi kli rishon, which is pouring boiling hot water, heating up boiling hot water, and then pouring that over all the surfaces of the sink, and also over the surface of the faucet. As well. So that's how you could kosher your sink. Now, it should be noted though, once you do iroi, pour the boiling hot water over the stainless steel sink, you should still not have the kosher Pesach silverware or pots, whatever, has touched the surface directly. The reason for that is because we're concerned that, let's say, a hot piece of spaghetti or a hot piece of chametz touched the surface of the sink. So really, that's what's called absorption, direct absorption without a liquid medium, where hagala, this method of koshering is not sufficient. So therefore, it's sufficient for most things. For, let's say, a liquid splash, then this method of using boiling hot water will kosher it for that. But so therefore, we say, yes, do this method of iroi, but even so, still try to avoid touching your pesadika silverware and cutlery to the metal surfaces of the sink. Have some kind of grate on the bottom, or use some kind of dish bin as well, if possible, to avoid actually touching the silverware and the pot to the surface of the sink itself. Now, if your pot does touch the surface, we'll assume it doesn't trafe it up, because presumably it did not touch in the exact location where that piece of spaghetti necessarily fell. We're going to assume, we don't have to go that far in assuming that it touched exactly the same spot. But still in all, as I'm saying, as a policy, even if you're going to do a stainless steel sink, you're going to use the boiling hot water, which you should do, still try to avoid having the pesadika cutlery and pots actually touch the surface of the sink if possible. Okay? That's the sink. Now, moving on to countertops. Now, if a person has some kind of granite or quartz countertop, so that kind of material does lend itself to koshering. Okay, so the method would be the same as the sink. Would be the same thing as the sink. You want to boil up, boiling hot water. Again, of course, you have to clean the surfaces thoroughly, clean all the countertops thoroughly. There should be no residue of chametz or anything like that. It should be perfectly clean. And then take your boiling hot water and pour it over your granite or stone or whatever the marble countertop is. Again, the issue is that ideally, in other words, this is the method of Iroi. So, you even after having done that of pouring the boiling hot water over the granite countertop, it's still best, if possible, to either cover the countertop, okay? But if you don't want to do that, then just like the sink, it's best to not have direct contact. Again, if your countertop is dry and you're going to put down a clean spoon, so then there's nothing horrible going to happen. But again, the concern with the countertop is the same as the sink. Let's say a boiling hot piece of spaghetti fell on a certain place in the countertop. That got absorbed into the countertop, not through a liquid medium. It was direct contact with the chametz. So your boiling hot water over that is not necessarily going to be enough to purge the chametz that got absorbed without the liquid medium, with direct contact of the piece of spaghetti. So it's like I said, it's even after you've koshered it, it's recommended as an ideal to cover it. If you don't want to cover it, so then still be wary of at least putting something hot, like a hot spoon or something directly on the surface of the counter. Or again, let's say you want to put a pot directly on the surface of the counter. So then it should, it should be dry, ideally, or put it on a trivet or something like that. That's an ideal. Now, again, if you did put it on the countertop, it's not going to trafe it up, because we're not going to necessarily assume that you put the spoon down exactly in the spot where the piece of spaghetti was. Okay, but again, this is as lechatchila an ideal. Even after having used the Iroi, we're concerned again that it got, Iroi takes care of liquid, in other words, liquid absorption. So if you have some chametz dika, the water from the spaghetti pot boiled over onto the counter surface, or some chametz dika soup, so then the Iroi, the hot water koshering method, would take care of that. But again, the concern is that sometimes some boiling hot solid chametz falls on the countertop, and then the boiling hot water method would not be sufficient necessarily, and so but again, lechatchila we would try it either ideal to cover it, even so, or to just make sure to put a trivet down, not put it, especially if it's hot, not put it, or hot or wet, not put it directly on the countertop surface. Okay, so that's, by the way, if people want to chime in as I'm speaking with questions, that's the point of the advantage of having it live, is that people can chime in as well. Does anybody have any questions on what I've said till now?
Yeah, just a question. A couple
Sure.
people, first of all, you're a little bit too close to the your phone or whatever is broadcasting, so if you
Okay.
can and you're out of focus. That's number one.
Well, the truth is I can't even see myself. I wonder why. Why is it that I cannot see myself?
Because you got to put in the video underneath, I guess.
No, but I don't know. It says that the video is enabled. So I
Uh-huh.
don't know why I can't see myself. Okay.
Okay,
Is
so
that better now where I'm standing?
you got to go a little bit farther back. And number two is, some people are seeing your video frozen. So I don't know if you have the proper Wi-Fi in your apartment now, or
Right. It
maybe
says,
not.
yeah, well, it says maybe I don't. Maybe it says, I thought I have the fastest, highest, whatever, but I guess I don't. I mean, that I can't take care of. It is what it is.
Right.
But
No, not a problem. So
yeah,
if you can just step back a little bit, or you'll be probably more in focus.
Okay. Can people see me now? Is that better?
Yeah. If you can go farther, move your chair back a little bit from the
How about I'll move?
Yeah, that's much better.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. Okay. Good. Does anyone have any actual questions on anything I've said till now in terms of the content?
So one question is the mikvah for Tevil for Kalim open?
Right. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think they sent out. My understanding is that it's not open at this point.
Okay.
But I'll have to double check that and get back to you.
But you can actually go to the ocean to do this.
That's true. That's true. The truth is, I mean, I've been in touch with some other rabbis and who've been in touch themselves with Rabbi Dr. Aaron Glad, who's an expert in infectious diseases, also a rabbi at the Young Israel of Woodmere. And, he said, as long as people take common sense precautions in terms of using gloves, not crowding into that small space where the Kelim mikveh is, coming home, washing off everything thoroughly, and the like, that, it shouldn't really be much of a concern. But I'll have to get back to you in the particulars of that. Like you said, in the meantime, certainly the ocean is a perfectly, or the bay for that matter, if you're on the other side of Long Beach, is a perfectly kosher mikveh for Kalim. Of course, just you have to remember to remove all stickers or any dirt when you stick it in the whatever you're immersing it in.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions in the meantime? Okay. All right.
So just one question to understand it. You went back with the countertops.
Right.
If you have a granite countertop, okay, and you put hot boiling water or steam iron on top of it,
right,
with steam coming out.
Right.
Okay, so your only problem is if in the future you have something that actually contacts the granite afterwards, then that might be a problem.
Right. The truth is, let me just explain a little bit. If one would use boiling hot water in conjunction with what's called an Eben Milubenis, which is a hot stone, so then that would work. In other words, then you could perfectly stick anything you want on the countertop. I'm just saying, as a practical matter, I don't know. People, they talk about using a burning hot stone with tongs or whatever it is, and as you pour the hot water, have the stone go over that hot water. Now, just to explain the logic of that, if you will, the halachic mechanics of that is that when you're pouring boiling hot water, that's what's called irui kli rishon. It's pouring from a kli rishon, okay? But the mere act of pouring already reduces the level of heat. In order to kasher it fully so that you could use it for anything, even if, let's say, you had a burning hot piece of spaghetti on it originally, and now you want to kasher it even in regards to that burning hot piece of spaghetti, if it would be kli rishon mamish, actual kli rishon, then that would be good enough. Okay. Now, the only way as a practical matter to get it to be literally kli rishon, again, if people are not, if people could just mute unless they have a question, because I'm getting feedback from other people, is the only way to get it actual kli rishon is with the accompaniment of the hot stone. Okay, because the hot stone, what the hot stone does is it keeps it at the boiling hot temperature. It makes it as if like it's the inside of the water is still in that original kettle or whatever is, and still boiling away in that original kettle. That level of heat is sufficient to kasher it, even if the piece of spaghetti fell on it. But I'm just saying, as a practical matter, I don't think people are gonna, they talk about it, but are people heating up hot stones and, going with tongs with their hot stones along with their hot water? I don't think so, right? If people are, so then that works. But as a practical matter, most people don't. Now, it could be that people have these very hot steamers, like these steamers, cleaning steamers that blow literally hot steam. I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about. It could be that that is sufficient also. That these have the power steamers. That would be better than just pouring boiling hot water, and that would allow you to use your granite countertop even without a covering. You could put stuff directly flat on the granite countertop. But without that, you have the concern. If you're just going to use the pouring boiling hot water method, so ideally you shouldn't put stuff down directly, on the countertop. You should put it on a trivet or the like. Okay, is that clear? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna continue with that. Okay, so where do we leave off? We left off. We did the oven so far. We did the various types of stovetops. We did the sinks. We talked about the countertops. So I think that basically leaves us with two more things. And people feel free to ask me, actually maybe three more things. Microwaves, right? That's something that comes up pretty often. People want to know, can they kasher their microwave for Pesach? So that really is related to the issue of kashering plastic in general. Is plastic kasherable? Some say not. Many say yes. It seems like that. I think there's solid basis to be lenient in this case. So what they prescribe for koshering the microwave is to clean out all the surfaces thoroughly. Okay, not use it for 24 hours. Okay, and then the way you could kosher it is they suggest taking like a styrofoam cup or some kind of cup with water in it, having that cup boil out. In other words, put it on high for 10 minutes, have the steam fill the microwave. Okay, and then do it actually a second time and moving the cup to a second location. Okay, because the concern is that little area under that little circle under where the cup was the first time didn't get the steam. So that's why they want you to do it a second time, moving the cup to a different location on the tray, and do it one more time like that. Now the tray itself is usually a hard plastic tray. Sometimes they say ideally if you could get a different one for Pesach, that's ideal. If not, the truth is, some say I think it could withstand. It's the kind of hard plastic that could withstand hagala, immersion in the boiling hot water, to kasher it that way. But even if not, what you could do is simply just cover the tray with some kind of material, either some kind of paper or some kind of plastic, such that your pesadika plate is not touching the surface of the tray. In other words, it's directly. Okay, so that would covering the year-round tray would also be acceptable in terms of using it. So again, clean it thoroughly, clean the tray thoroughly. Don't use for 24 hours. Once through, boil out a cup of hot water, get it all steamy. Move the cup to a second location on the tray. Do it a second time, and then I would say cover over the tray with some kind of physical cooking paper or something, plastic, whatever it is, so that when you use it on Pesach, your Pesach dish is not touching the year-round tray directly, and then you could use the microwave for Pesach. Okay, that's the microwave. And then next is dishwashers. Dishwashers, again, it's the same debate. Is plastic kasherable? There are those who say not. There are those, apparently, actually, Moshe Feinstein seemed to have a little bit of an in-between position, that he was strict about it for Pesach. Like if it was a treif microwave, a treif dishwasher, then he would be lenient on the kasher and plastic issue. But for Pesach, because in general there's an idea of being a little stricter for Pesach, he would not allow it. But there are many authorities. I spoke to Rabbi Herschel Scheffler from YU. He felt that that there is basis to be lenient in terms of koshering a dishwasher, even though it's plastic. In general, he felt that we could rely on that plastic is kasherable. Of course, in other words, you have to make sure it's cleaned out thoroughly. that there's no visible chametz there. In other words, really cleaned out. And also a point of concern in terms of the dishwashers, and I'm not an expert dishwasher mechanic, apparently there's a drain where the stuff drains out. Sometimes little bits of food get stuck in that. So really, if you could somehow make sure, again, I'm not an expert in it, but the point is you can't have actual visible particles or actual visible chametz. Kashering is not going to help you. So if you could make sure that it's really thoroughly cleaned of any tangible particles of food and visible chametz, so then you could kasher it through turning it on, running through a cycle on its hottest. Maybe it would be a good idea probably to add some detergent as well, run it through a cycle at its hottest, and then it's considered kashered. Okay, so that's in terms of the dishwasher. In terms of pots.
You also have to wait 24 hours afterwards?
Not afterwards. No, the waiting 24 hours is not afterwards. It's beforehand.
Beforehand. Okay.
Yeah, the beforehand. Always the 24 hours is the beforehand, before kasher. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Ideally, you should wait 24 hours beforehand. Okay. Let's see. Refrigerators and shelves. Of course, that's you're not kashering these things, but you're just making sure physically it should be well cleaned out. Wash the shelves off. Some people line it. The lining is not absolutely necessary. It's a nice thing. Okay, so Lana, okay, let's see. I'm so sorry. It's okay to kasher a dishwasher even if the racks are plastic. That's what I said, yes. In other words, according to Rabbi Herschel Schechter and others, he said that yes, you can rely on that. Again, just as a heads up, everything I'm saying, I mean, as in halacha in general, there is a variance of opinions. So if somebody's going to say, "Oh, but I thought you're not allowed to kasher plastic," yeah, there are those opinions that say like that. But there also, I'm saying, seems to be many opinions who say you can kasher plastic. And so the answer to your question, Ilana, is yes. That I'm saying that there is solid basis to rely on, even if we're dealing with plastic racks and a plastic dishwasher, the sides are plastic, etc. That if it's well cleaned, you have to physically make sure there's no particles of food are there. Then you could kasher it. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Okay.
I'm sorry. Do you mind if I ask a question?
Please.
I heard that you need to buy new racks for the dishwasher. Did I miss that part?
Yeah, no. So he did not mention that. No, in other words, the racks, is plastic, just like the sides are plastic. So again, in other words, if there's, just as a general point, if there's crevices that you can't get the chametz out of, they're just, it's just stuck there, or the angle, or it's not accessible. So then the thing is not kasherable. That's true in all kashering. But assuming that the thing is perfectly, you cleaned it off, there's no visible particles, there's no visible food residue or particles there, it's perfectly clean from the just looking at the naked eye, then yes, even if the racks are plastic, but then it's kasherable according to many opinions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So where do we leave off? So that was the dishwasher. Again, now the refrigerator, like I said, you're not quote unquote kashering your refrigerator. You're just cleaning it from, giving it a good cleaning. You want to wash off all the surfaces, take out the shelves, wash them down. Once you've done that, you're basically good to go. If you want to line the shelves also, that's a nice thing. I don't think it's technically absolutely necessary. That's my opinion. Okay, let's say actual pots and silverware. So again, the same thing. In other words, pots, metal pots, silverware is usually metallic, right? As well. All these things are kasherable. Now, of course, in general, as a principle, it's better if you could afford it and it's doable. It's always better to have a pesadika thing than to kasher from chametz. That's just a general principle. So it's better to have pesadika pots, better to have pesadika silverware, better to have pesadika everything if possible. But again, if not possible, which often it's not, so then you could kasher for Pesach, as is the age-old custom. Okay, so to kasher a pot, okay, again, you have to clean it out well. Not use it for 24 hours, and then you want to kasher the pot itself. You gotta fill it with water, have the water boil, and then even overflow the edges to get the lip, to get the rim of the the edge, the top edge, the rim of the pot should be kosher as well. You don't have to kosher the outside of the pot, okay? But it's the inside and the rim, it should overflow and kosher the rim. But of course, again, the outside should be perfectly clean, okay? But you don't have to pour boiling hot water over the outside of the pot. That's not necessary. Okay, and then of course, if you have silverware that you want to kosher, so then again, the same thing, it should be perfectly clean, not used for 24 hours, and then you throw it in to the pot of boiling hot water. Again, the pot you're using to kosher, ideally, could be chametz dik actually, but again, in other words, but not used, should perfectly clean and not used for 24 hours. And they actually say you should actually boil up hot water one time, okay, and in that pot, okay, fill it up with water, have it boil once, discard that water, and then refill it and then bring it to a boil. And then in that second time, you stick your silverware in it to be kosher. Okay, so the silverware that you're sticking in it, again, perfectly clean, not used for 24 hours, then you can throw it in. The water that you're using to kosher should be boiling hot. It should be bubbling, okay? It should be really boiling. Stick it in, leave it there for a few seconds, and then take it out. And so to any other utensil you want to kosher. Now, just as a point of information, unlike toveling in a mikvah, where the person has to tovel their whole body at once, you can't tovel one leg and come out, then tovel the other leg. Koshering something with Hagala is not like that. You could do it piecemeal. So if it doesn't all fit in the pot at once, you could stick half of it in, kosher that one half, and then take it out, and then kosher the other half. As long as the hot water hits every surface of that thing you want to kosher, that's okay. It could be done piecemeal as long as the whole entire thing is done. Okay, so that's just a point of information to know in terms of that. Okay, tea kettles as well. Should be koshered. Okay, same thing. You want to clean it well from the outside. Now, the reason why tea kettles should be kosher is not that you're cooking chametz or boiling chametz in the tea kettle, but it's often on the stove where things splatter and boil over, and it's next to your chult, which splattered and got on the outside of the tea kettle, etc. So that's why they say you should kosher your if you want to. Again, it's better to have a Pesach one, but if you want to kosher your all year round one, again, not use it for 24 hours, not use it for 24 hours, make sure it's perfectly clean, boil the hot water and have it overflow a little bit on the over the top, and you kosher your tea kettle. Okay, I think we've touched on high chair. People, a baby high chair, again, that should be just well cleaned. Obviously the tray is plastic where the kid puts the food, well cleaned. And then really they say you should just cover over the tray with contact paper or something like that. You cover with tinfoil. I mean, technically that's okay, but just as a practical matter, the tinfoil tends to get ripped, and then he's back eating on the year-round chametz dik tray. So maybe you're going to do tinfoil a couple in 2 layers or something that doesn't rip maybe as easily as tinfoil. Okay, Ilana had a question before about warming draws. Okay, and I did a little bit more research into using koshering warming draws. And what I actually asked Rabbi Schechter about it, and he said there's room to be lenient in that. In other words, actually, maybe someone can inform me. How hot does a warming draw get? What's the maximum in terms of how hot a warming draw would get? Does anyone know offhand? Ilana, you there?
It's 170, 150.
Oh, so that's as hot. Okay. So it doesn't get that hot, bottom line. So it's not, it's not really kosherable per se. In other words, you can't heat it up like even, let's say, a non-cleaning oven, heated it up to 550 or whatever it is, which is the maximum temperature on a non-self-cleaning. That's called libun kal. You're not going to get it that hot, so you cannot kosher it that method. But basically, he suggested that the fact that it doesn't get so hot is also, there's an upside to it, meaning you're not really cooking with it. There's not going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not like really steam. Is there, there's not going to be steam there, right? Is there, in other words, if you're, usually people put in the warming drawer like a covered tray, a covered thing of kugel or something, a covered challah, to maintain its heat, or is that correct? I mean, that's its usage. Something is cooked, not in the warming drawer, and you just so therefore he said really, I could go up to 200, and he's saying it's not necessarily covered. Okay, but bottom line is, even in other words, the only real concern in such a scenario would be if there's like, Alana, is it ever get steamy in there? In other words, is there ever steam? No. So if there's no steam in there, so then there's not really a concern of reverse trafing, if you will. In other words, because if it would get very steamy, so the concern is that, your chametz stick of steam went into the walls of the warming drawer, and then when you put on Pesach, you put your Pesach food in there and it gets all steamed up again, it's going to now trafe up the Pesach food that you put in. But you need some kind of medium to get from the walls, number one, from your food to trafe it up into the walls in the first place. So that would be the steam in the direction in terms of trafing it up. And then you need a medium to extract the trafe from the walls into your food. Okay? It's also lined like a crock pot. What does that mean? It's lined like a crock pot. I don't know what that means. Okay. But so he said, so therefore, in other words, there's not really a concern of trafing up there's not going to be steam action which would transfer the trafe from the walls of the warming drawer into your Pesach food. So what he suggested is, he said, but just bottom line of the whole thing is, he was, like I said, he was Sadr as a basis. He said you have to put a separation between the crock pot and the heating element. Oh, you're saying from a shop? Right. Well, correct. In other words, I'm not 100% sure what you're saying right now, but Rabbi said you have to do the same thing for the warming drawer. Okay. Well, you're talking about the laws of Shabbos, I assume. Right. We're not talking from a kosher perspective. Are you saying, right, from the laws of Shabbos? Okay. So that's a separate issue, but good point. Okay. But I'm just talking about from a kashrus perspective right now. So what Rabbi Schechter said, I mean, and the prescription I'm about to give will take care of both issues, which is, clean the warming drawer well. In other words, make sure there's no crumbs, there's no dirt, no spillage, there's no visible chametz, that it's perfectly clean. Okay. And if it's perfectly clean, then he said line it with something, I guess like a tin foil or something like that. And then you could use it like that. In other words, because, your pot, your Pesach pot is not coming in direct contact with the chametz surface. It's covered over by the tin foil. And there's no really way that your chametz stuff, your Pesach stuff is going to get trafed up, because there's no steam to inject it into your Pesach food. It's just a question of direct contact, and the direct contact is avoided by the intermission, if you will, of the lining that you're going to place there, the tin foil or the like. Okay, is that clear? Okay, so it has to be thoroughly cleaned, line it with tin foil, and then he said you could use it. All right, is that we're good with that? Is that clear? Okay. What else is there that I didn't touch on?
By the way, the mikvah is open.
Oh, the mikvah is open. Okay, good to know.
For Kalim only.
Yeah, right, for Kalim only. Good, thank you, Nelson. So the mikvah is open for Kalim. I believe the combination is 315 to get into the.
Correct.
And but again, people don't crowd into there. Let one person use it as, in terms of our current COVID-19 situation, one person at a time. Women's mikvah is open by appointment. Men's is closed. But we're talking about the Kalim mikvah. Okay, are you just giving us additional information, Alana, or okay? So Alana's pointing out that yes, thank you, Alana. Okay, so yes, the men's mikvah is closed and the women's mikvah is open by appointment only, and the Kalim mikvah, Nelson, you just indicated, is open. But again, let's use common sense guidelines on the current situation. Don't one person at a time. If wait outside while that person is using it. Then when he leaves, then you could use it. And again, use gloves, make sure everything is, you bring home, you clean it thoroughly, rinse it off thoroughly, so, etc. So just use common sense guidelines in terms of our current COVID-19 situation. Yeah, you're
Rabbi,
going to say something?
Rabbi Weissenberg, also, when you say to stand outside, they should not stand at the steps, because if somebody's coming out, they'll be too close to the person coming down. So just stand outside by the sidewalk. And also, very important, please clean up after yourself. Don't leave paperwork, and don't leave it a mess.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I echo. In other words, there's no reason why someone else should have to clean up your mess. Throw all the wrappers and the stickers and everything you've, in the garbage that's there in the room there, and absolutely clean up after yourself. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So that's. I think we've touched on. Have I left out any things in terms of koshering in the kitchen? I think we've touched on everything. Okay. So I said we're going to go sequentially. So that's koshering. Let's move now to bedikas chametz and bir chametz, searching for chametz and getting rid of chametz. So just in terms of, again, common question people have is, let's say, medications. Does that have, if that has any chametz ingredients, do you have to check? And again, Rabbi Schechter, and again, I think it's the consensus of the OU and many, probably most poskim, is that in other words, the standard for being able to eat it or use it or have benefit from it on Pesach is what's called, it has to be nifsal me'achilas kelev. It's something that even a dog would not eat. Okay, if it's that state of non-edibleness, if you will, for lack of a better word, so then you're allowed to. Then it's okay. So in other words, all these capsules and pills and the standard medication, do we have to toivel kalim this year? Yeah. So again, hi Esther Langer. There are people that are circulating. In other words, for sure you have to toivel your kalim. That's a mitzvah daraisa, which for sure applies. Or it's the rabbanon if it's glassware. If it's metal, it's daraisa. If it's glassware, it's only it's the rabbanon. So for sure you have to total them. Now there's a way that some people I saw are getting around it, a loophole, if you will. If you if it's not only owned by you, or if you give a non-Jew part ownership in the keli, so then that's a way of exempting you from having the obligation to be told with a keli. That's a way of getting around it. I don't think it seems to be. It's not the preferred method. The preferred method is to tovel it. And again, this is. I didn't speak to Rabbi Dr. Aaron Glatt, MD, from myself, but I've spoken to other rabbis who have asked him this specific question about using a keli mikvah under the current circumstances. And again, he said as long as people follow, good common sense and practice good hygiene, he thinks that it's okay. In other words, again, using gloves, cleaning everything off thoroughly after you come home, and again, not crowding into that small space, just one person at a time in the keli mikvah. Rabbi Dr. Aaron Glatt, MD, said that he thinks that's okay. That's even under the current circumstances. Okay. Okay, so I was talking about medicines. Okay, so if it's nifsal me'achilas kelev, so then it's okay. Now, the plain assumption is that all these pills, that prescription medications that people take, of any kind, it's very bad tasting. Obviously, people don't chew it; they just swallow it right down with a glass of water. That's considered nifsal me'achilas kelev, and it's not an issue even if there's some chametz ingredient in it. It doesn't matter. It's acceptable to take your medication on Pesach, and that includes vitamins as well. Now same thing; those are very foul tasting. No one chews them. You swallow it right down, and that's okay. Where you begin to have an issue is with, let's say, chewables, or let's say cough syrups that have that are edible. Again, they're not might not be the tastiest, but they are edible. People eat them. The proof is that people do eat them, right? They do swallow the cough syrup and they do chew the chewables. So that's where there's an issue of chametz and during Pesach and kashrus all year round. So if you have chewables or cough syrup or the like, which you take, you just swallow and it's at least mildly palatable. It, might not be great tasting, but people, eat it like that. So then you do have to be concerned about the flavorings and the like, if there's chametz ingredients, and also in terms of all year round, like a kashrus as well. So in terms of that, it'd be a case-by-case basis. If you have a particular shaila of a particular chewable or a particular syrup that, then it would have to be investigated on an individual basis. Okay, that's in terms of medications. In terms of, let's say, a mouthwash and toothpaste, again, Rabbi Schechter feels that's not considered roy lachilas kelev, even though they are pleasant tasting. But he says, in other words, that you're not going to sit and drink or eat toothpaste. And again, that's obviously a human being, but even a dog, apparently, he thinks, would not eat toothpaste or would not quote unquote drink, just straight out drink or eat mouthwash. So his opinion is that it does not have to be the toothpaste nor the mouthwash does not have to be special kosher Pesach. You could, use any brand. Again, there are some, each year they circulate a list of, the preferable ones. So if you, I didn't look which ones this year are the preferable ones, but again, the scope usually is okay. The main brands of toothpaste, the Colgates, generally are okay. So Rosh Hashanah feels you don't have to worry about it. It's not roy lachilas kelev. But if you want to, get the ones that are quote unquote, yes, kosher Pesach, you don't have to worry about it all. So good, even better. So you could find out which ones this year are particularly fit for Pesach. And use those if there's no downside, might as well use those. Okay, that's in terms of mouthwash, toothpaste, medications. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. What else? What about in terms of cosmetics and other types of toiletries, perfumes, cosmetics? Certainly lotions, soap, shampoos, none of that is roy lachilas kelev. None of that a dog would eat. It's all fine. Doesn't matter if there's chametz ingredients. So, I really, I guess maybe the only issue might be, let's say lipstick is, but again, I don't think lipstick is not roy lachilas kelev either. I don't think a dog is going to eat lipstick. If apparently there's such a thing as flavored lipstick or pleasant tasting lipstick, I'm not a woman, but I assume there's such a thing. I think I've heard of such a thing. Then something like that might be problematic. So I would avoid, but I think regular lipstick is not considered roy lachilas kelev, and I don't think therefore would be an issue. Okay, that's in terms of the medications and the toiletries. Okay, let's talk about actually the search for chametz. Now, the general custom is basically, of course, we know the night of the 14th, the Mishnah Pesachim says, the night of Erev Pesach, the night of 14th of Nisan, is the time from the stars come out. One should not do anything else. One should, search for chametz. Now, what exactly are we looking for in terms of our search for chametz? Now, we don't have to look for, people get neurotic. We don't have to look, is there maybe some crumbs, in the back of the bookshelf under the this, under the that. There was crumbs, the Gemara says, pirurim batla me'alayu. Crumbs are batal on their own because of their insignificance. So again, if you see crumbs, definitely dispose of them and clean them up and get rid of them. No question about it. But just to have in mind what we're looking for here when we do our bedikas chametz, it's not crumbs. Crumbs are not an issue inherently. What we're looking for really is significant pieces of chametz, a cookie, or even a part of a cookie, or whatever it is, a pretzel, some Cheerios. We're talking about something, substantial. Okay, that's really what the whole search for chametz is about. And crumbs are not looking for crumbs. Again, in the kitchen where we're placing food down, then obviously crumbs is an issue, right? But I'm talking about the rest of the house where your living room, your den, your bedrooms, your this, your hallways, etc., where we're not placing food down on surfaces. So in terms of just the mitzvah of bedika and bir chametz, crumbs is not the issue. Again, it's the minig of Klal Yisrael, of course, to clean our houses for Pesach. That's part of the thing. But again, people shouldn't lose sight of the fact that, in other words, that's really, from a letter of the law perspective, crumbs are basically, as Gemara says, batel on their own because of their insignificance. It's not technically an issue. So again, of course, if you see it, get rid of it. Yes, clean your house as is the custom, but don't lose your sanity over it. Okay. Let's know what is just part of a nice thing and what is actually technically required. Okay, so then we're looking for real substantial chametz. One has to check everywhere. Okay, unless now, where does a person not have to check? Person, the Mishnah says, makom she'ein machnisim bo chametz ein tzarich b'dika, a place where chametz is never brought during the course of the year, then you don't have to check there. If you have an attic, no one ever brings food up there, then you don't have to do b'dikas chametz there. Okay, now of course, if people have little kids, that obviously throws a monkey wrench into it. In other words, again, if it's locked and the kid can't get there, so then it doesn't matter. But if there's some chance that the kid, even though you told him not to, brought some chametz there anyway, so then you should check that room or that area as well. But again, if no one ever brings chametz to a place, a cellar, a this or that, where people don't bring chametz, then you don't have to check that location. Makom she'ein machnisim bo chametz, the Mishnah says ein tzarich b'dika. Okay, now the checking should not just be, the custom is to put out 10 small pieces of bread wrapped in tinfoil and to put them different locations throughout the house. The b'dikas chametz should not just be, running through and picking up the 10 pieces that you put out. Okay, that the 10 pieces is kind of like an extra thing that in case you don't find any chametz, so your bracha was not in vain, etc. But that's not the point of the b'dikas chametz, is the quick run through just to pick up your 10 pieces. The point of b'dikas chametz is you have to go through systematically every area, okay, where there is a possibility that there is chametz. Again, if there's no possibility that there's chametz there, it does not require b'dika. But if there is a possibility, it does, okay? So therefore, I'm sorry, let me see if this is, hello? Yes, sure. Okay, Dov, I'm just in the middle of an online share right now. So can you, okay. So call me back maybe in about an hour or tomorrow, okay? Thanks so much. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, that was Dr. Dove. By the way, Nelson told me that Dr. Dove very graciously, Nelson, is that offer still on? That he very graciously, if people had any medical questions in regard to the current situation, that he would be happy to field your questions. So Nelson, am I correct in that regard?
That is correct. The only thing he does not have the ability to prescribe. Okay, so just take that into account.
Okay, but that was very nice of Dr. Dov Staffeld, and we appreciate his graciousness. Okay, right. So what was I saying? Time of b'dikas chametz. So again, it should not be a perfunctory run through just to pick up your 10 pieces. You have to really search every place there's a possibility of chametz. Okay, again, if chametz is not brought there, then you don't have to search it. But if there's a possibility that sometimes chametz is brought there, you do have to do a thorough search. Okay, so now because of that, actually the modern day poskim say, in other words, the letter of the law is to use a candle. That's what the Mishnah says, as opposed to a big light, because a candle allows you to focus on one area at a time. You could bend down with a candle, really look closely into crevices and things like that. Now, the modern post can say that, what's even better than a candle in that regard is a flashlight, because you're not going to go under your bed with a candle. You're going to set your bed on fire. You're not going to look behind the drapes with a candle. You're going to put your drapes on. So therefore, what's recommended is actually to start off with a candle. The candle is traditional. Make the blessing, okay? Start off with a candle. Maybe you want to pick up your 10 pieces with a candle, whatever it is. You could start off with a candle, but then for the real nitty-gritty looking, they say actually a flashlight is better than a candle, because you're going to go and look in places where you wouldn't with a candle, because with a candle you have a fear of setting things on fire. So really, a candle a flashlight is actually practically better. So you should look under your bed, move the beds, whatever, move this, move that, move the chairs, whatever you're moving. Really, it should be a thorough inspection. It shouldn't just be a perfunctory run through. That's the mitzvah. That's the proper way to do b'dikas chametz. Of course, like I said, the custom is really ideally to have the house already cleaned before the night of b'dikas chametz, and then that allows you your b'dikas chametz to be maybe not quite as long and a little bit more effective. That's really the custom, is to try and have the house really clean before the night of b'dikas chametz, and then do the b'dikas chametz after having cleaned the house. But again, it should be that's ideal. If you didn't get it done before then, so you didn't. But that's the ideal way to do it. Okay, so that's the story with b'dikas chametz. Let's move on to the next part, which is selling the chametz. Okay, selling the chametz. The question is, can you sell what's called chametz gomer, or real chametz, like bread, cookies, pasta, etc., which is real hardcore chametz? There are different opinions on the matter. Rabbi Schechter, always quoted Rabbi Soloveitchik, is saying that it's really better not to sell that, better to actually get rid of it, eat it up, destroy it, really give it away, not the way we sell it, but with the intention of buying it back. If you want to flat out, or just give it as a gift, give it to your next door neighbor, say, hey, Mr. Johnson, I have a gift for you, my cookies, my cereal, whatever, to really get rid of it in a permanent fashion. That's ideal for real chametz. Now, the question is, what about schnapps and liquor? Ideally, really, it's a question whether liquor and whiskey and all that is considered, beer is actually certainly real chametz. But let's say anything which is distilled, right? There is some room to be. There are some opinions that maybe it's not considered full chametz, because distillation, the thing turns into a gas, and then it turns back. It's cooled and turns back into a liquid. So, it basically, apparently they soak the grain, right? And then in a liquid, they call it a mash or something like that. And then they boil it out, and the alcohol evaporates and then is distilled and turns back after they evaporate, it cools and turns back into the liquid. And then you have your whiskey or whatever you distilled. So there are some lenient opinions who say that, well, you can't say when it's in a gas form, it's chametz, right? It's just a gas. Chametz is either a solid or a liquid, but gas is not chametz. And then when you distill it, so then it's basically, you created a new entity out of thin air and disconnected from the grain which it came from. But that's really a very small minority opinion. And so really most hold that really, even if it's distilled, it's really straight on chametz. So again, it's better to drink up your liquor or whiskey beforehand. That's ideal. Are there those who say you could sell straight out chametz? Yes, there are those who say you could sell straight out chametz, and there's plenty of positions to rely on in terms of selling straight out chametz. I'm just putting it out there that Rabbi Schechter, I was quoting Rabbi Soloveitchik, that it's, in his opinion, better not to. But again, there certainly are opinions who say you could even sell straight out chametz. So someone wanted to have a question. Someone had a question on that? No. Okay. All right. So that's in terms of selling the chametz. And then what are we left with? We're left with selling the chametz. Okay, I guess I think probably there was a comment here. Let me just look. Someone just write a comment. Okay, Esther Langer, especially if there's a hefsed meruba. Right, that's correct. Okay, if there's what's called halacha hefsed meruba, a big financial loss of money, correct. In other words, back in the day, a lot of where the whole institution of mechiras chametz came from is, let's say, if people's whole business was they own a liquor store, or they had an inn where they had a lot of liquor, and to get rid of that would be put the person, is a very large financial loss. So then it's certainly correct. There's certainly, room to rely on in a case of an extra financial loss. But again, if it's not a significant financial loss, it's, at least according to Rabbi Soloveitchik, ideal to not resort to this kind of sale that we do, where we intend to buy it back afterwards, but rather to either just sell it flat out, here it is, have a nice day, or give it as a gift flat out, or drink it, get rid of it, etc. But correct, in the case of hefsed meruba, a large financial loss, certainly there's room to be lenient. To there are many, of course, who in that situation flat out sell it. Okay. I think the last thing we have left to talk about in terms of preparing for Pesach, I think, is the Erev Tavshilin this year. Right, this year it's a 3-dayer, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. So in order to be able to cook for Shabbos, we have to do what's called an Erev Tavshilin, which is we set aside on Erev Yontiv on Wednesday 2 items. One of them should be baked, one of them should be cooked. So, I mean, traditionally people take a matzah and a piece of gefilte fish, a matzah and a hard-boiled egg, something like that, and you say the prescribed formula along with the blessing, which is essentially saying, well, the part of it's actually 2 opinions to Gemara what you're doing here. One opinion says is that the reason why we have the mitzvah Erev Tavshilin is because Shabbos gets to tend to overlook preparing for Shabbos in all the preparation for Yom Tov, and Shabbos is not going to have a nice piece of food set aside for it. So the rabbis wanted to make a special point of we're preparing for Shabbos, even though in the hubbub of preparing for Yom Tov. But the more commonly well-known understanding is that actually, because there's an Isser, it's called Hachana, preparing from one day to the next. Preparing from one day Yom Tov to the next, or even preparing, in this case, from one day Yom Tov to Shabbos. But the question is how you're going to cook for Shabbos. You can't cook on Shabbos like you could cook on Yom Tov. So the rabbis instituted, if you start the preparation process already on Erev Yom Tov, that allows you to continue preparing even on Yom Tov itself for the sake of Shabbos. You started the preparation process for Shabbos on Erev Yom Tov, you could continue even on Erev Shabbos, even though it's Yom Tov. Now, I did see, though, something maybe to keep in mind, and I hope it doesn't put too much of a crimp in people's style, is that they say that in a situation like this, let's say Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, you shouldn't, even though the Erev Tavshil allows you to cook for Shabbos, but that's dafka really on Friday, cooking for Shabbos. You should not really be cooking on Thursday for Shabbos, even if you have done an Erev Tavshilin. So that's just a little point. That's a point to keep in mind. And just maybe 2 additional points in terms of Erev Tavshilin. Is that if somebody eats the Erev Tavshilin by accident, or it gets lost, so then you can't rely on it anymore. However, however is that usually the rabbi or does it. When he does it, he has in mind to do it on behalf of everybody. So in a pinch, if you didn't do yours, again, you shouldn't rely on it to begin with. You should do your own. But if somehow you meant to do it, you forgot or got lost, it got eaten by accident, so then in a pinch you can rely on the rabbis at Erev Tavshilin to cook on Friday for Shabbos. And the last point in terms of the Erev Tavshilin is that ideally they say you should cook earlier in the day on Friday, if at all possible, such that in theory what you're making could still be eaten on Yom Tov itself. If some guests would come, late in the day on Friday, you could serve them what you just made. That's really ideal in terms of cooking for Shabbos, because there you have the added advantage that you actually could use it on Yom Tov itself. So it's not straight out cooking for another day of doing the Isser Lachana, but it's actually something you could have used today. That's really ideal in terms of cooking for Shabbos. Again, if you can't, then you can't, but I'm just putting it out there as an ideal. Okay. I think we covered, all the main points in terms of the laws of preparing for Pesach. Is there any points that I didn't touch on, or people would like clarification?
I had a question, and
Sure.
I think it's important.
Yes.
Typically, every year we all dispose of the chametz in the shul driveway.
Okay? Oh, okay.
Burning
Yes.
the chametz, and I think this year we cannot do that because people gathered together, and we're going to have to figure out. So Tara came up with an idea, my wife, about maybe we're not going to use our barbecue. Okay, we could probably, because I've heard of accidents years before with people using all kinds of fire, fluids that are flammables, and you don't want to have an accident, God forbid. Could you use a barbecue that you're not going to use for Pesach and put all the chametz inside to burn it with the barbecue on?
Right. So that's a good question. You raise a good issue. I didn't even think about that in terms of with the current COVID-19 climate, in terms of the usual beer chametz that we do. We have to figure that out. But just taking your question in isolation, in terms of the truth is the halacha is, and that's what happens when Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, that you're not allowed to burn things on Shabbos.
Right.
So what you do is you flush it down the toilet. So strictly speaking, we rule that you could get rid of chametz in any method of getting rid, flushing down the toilet, whatever. So certainly, yeah, that would be an acceptable. Ideally, when it's not Shabbos, we try and specifically use the method of burning, because there's one opinion that says you should only burn it, but we don't really rule like him. But if we could fulfill his opinion, we try to fulfill his opinion when it's not Shabbos. So right, so burning is the ideal way to do it. Yeah, you could listen, as long as it's safe. Why not? You could use whatever, you want to make a little fire on your own and it's a safe, you could for sure do it. Now, the only thing I would caution is just be careful. You don't want to throw a whole big chunk of challah on there and it's going to get burnt on the outside, and, you'll still have the inside is still chametz. You know what I'm saying? The bulk of your chametz you want to get rid of in other fashions than the burning. You want to maybe just do your 10 crumbs. Again, also when you do your 10 crumbs, make sure you unwrap it from the tin foil, because otherwise it's not going to get burnt. But you don't want to put too big of pieces. I'm just saying practically, because it's not going to get burnt all to ash. It's you want to thoroughly get rid of it. And if it's just going to be burnt on the outside, it's a big piece and it's going to be big chametz on the inside, you haven't really accomplished your goal. So just beware of that from a practical standpoint. And the same thing with Cheerios and stuff like that. We don't have a burning hot flame. It's going to scorch, the main stuff really, I would say, just for the actual burning of the chametz, leave over just really a very small token amount to do the burning. The bulk of it, get rid of it in another fashion, throw it away, give it away. Just the actual burning is not a practical, thing. Okay. That's in terms of that. I see, I'm sorry, Esther Lenger typed a question here. That's okay. So if we are selling our chametz and I don't have actual chametz, except for maybe an open bottle of expensive schnapps, what am I actually selling? Yeah, listen, if you have nothing to sell, listen, the minig is also, well, are you not going to sell the schnapps? Right. If let's say, okay, if you're not selling any major chametz, the truth is people still do it just because, kind of as an extra added measure, in case they have some chametz that they don't know about. People still go through the sale, but you're right. Technically speaking, if you don't have any, there's not an obligation to sell the chametz. The obligation is to get rid of the chametz. The sale is one method of getting rid of it. But if you have nothing, if you're not selling anything, so then there's not an obligation to sell. You're going to sell schnapps, so it's an insurance policy. Okay, that's fine. So you're selling the schnapps. I neglected to mention, just also in terms of the bdikas chametz, you don't forget about your car. Okay, your car, anything you own or any place you bring chametz that is yours, your office, your car, all of these places require bdikas chametz as well. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. You have to clean it, clean out the chametz and do a bdikas chametz in those places as well. Okay. Anything else I didn't touch on? Okay. Okay. So I think again, if people have questions, feel free to call me, to email me. My information is in the Young Israel directory. We're planning, just as an FYI, in terms of people wondering about the communal koshering that we do on a yearly basis, the Young Israel. So the newsletter that was sent out was a little bit confusing. It said Sunday, April 1st. Sunday is not April 1st. So the second half of that was correct. That apparently, actually, the April 1st is correct. It's going to be Wednesday, April 1st. Tentatively, again, this is not nailed down 100% yet, but that's what it looks like right now. It's going to be approximately 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Young Israel, Wednesday evening, April 1st. Okay. And then again, the same thing with Kalim Mikvah. We don't want people congregating together because of the current climate. It's going to be one person at a time. Okay. Wait in your cars or whatever, give people distance. One person will go in, do his thing. Okay. Give him space, let him go out, then the next person. Okay. So again, tentatively scheduled. It's going to go out in an email, hopefully Wednesday, not Sunday, Wednesday, April 1st at the Young Israel, a communal koshering of Kalim, approximately 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's in terms of that. And then my class, actually, my second installment of the Laws of the Seder and Insights into the Haggadah was originally scheduled for that Wednesday night, but because the Tfilas, the Hechsher Kalim rather, is going to take place then, so I'm going to move it to the following night. So my next class, again, Laws of the Seder and Insights into the Haggadah, will be Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. And you'll use the same link that you used for tonight, the same link for that as well, but we'll email out that link again, but it's going to be the exact same link. Okay, I think we're good. Unless there's any other questions, thank you everyone for your questions and participating.
Rabbi Weissenberg, Yasher Koach, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thanks all the participants that joined our first share online. Great to see everybody. We had 13 participants. That's very positive. So hopefully by spread the word and we can get more people.
Right. Actually, you know what I think, Nelson? I recorded this, so I'm gonna maybe ask Lisa Beckhofer to post it on the shul website. So if people weren't able to see it live, they'll be able to see hopefully a recording on the shul website. I think that's probably a good idea.
And on Friday, like we did last week, it'll be a drasha with the parsha of the week that
Yes.
Rabbi Weissenberg will deliver. And also the announcements there was a little bit of confusion last week with the davening since Haftorah was complicated. So we'll try to be a little bit more precise with pages. And so people that are davening at home will not be confused. So you don't have anybody to ask if you're davening in the wrong spot or if you don't know the right Haftorah. So we'll try to take care of that. Also Rosh Chodesh for everybody.
Oh, that's right. A good Chodesh. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh. Thank you for reminding us, Nelson. Everyone
Okay.
should have a good Chodesh Nisan. It's a month of redemption.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Yasher Koach, everybody. And thank you for joining. And have a great night and a good Chodesh.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.